Welcome back to the TNT Podcast. Today we have a special cryptid, so you better be ready for this one. Very few people have actually heard of this one, and its name is Jacko. So
Jack who?
Jacko.
Jacko.
Yeah, Jacko.
Oh, Jacko.
And today I'm going to be trying to attempt to convince my dad that Jacko was real. Several
Jacko.
sources. Yeah.
Okay.
Several sources have attempted to label Jacko a hoax because it sounds so strange to be true, you know?
Imagine that.
However, Jacko was the subject of numerous newspaper articles, and I just have a hard time believing newspaper reporters would just knowingly tell a lie. The
You have
original
a hard
story.
time believing the media tell a lie. Have you watched CNN lately?
Well, the original story was published published in The Colonist, so it's not CNN.
Oh, okay.
The original newspaper story was printed in July 4th, 1884, in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. It's a mouthful. The town near where this occurred is called Yale. It is located about 175 miles north of Seattle. The railroad track runs on the east side of the Fraser River, while the town sits on the west side. Traveling north on the railroad, trains pass some tall bluffs and tunnels, but each tunnel is given a number. And where this strange encounter with the Jacko took place was in tunnel number 4, which is about 20 miles north of
Is
Yale.
this a railroad story?
Yeah.
You might want to enlighten the readers about my history.
About railroad stories?
Know about my history.
How you worked at the railroad?
Yeah.
For too many years?
20 years. Drove trains. So I'm going to be looking for some inconsistencies in this story.
There ain't gonna be any. Jacko's real.
Okay, let's go.
All right. A train was approaching Tunnel 4 when the engineer saw what he thought was a young man asleep on the tracks. He applied the emergency brakes and began blowing the whistle. When the train came to a stop, the man stood and gave a bark-like sound and began scrambling up the side of the bluff. The conductor, baggage man, express messenger, and brakeman all jumped from the train and chased what appeared to be a teenage boy covered completely in hair.
You'll notice the engineer didn't give chase. He's the only one that had any sense on the whole train.
They decided.
I mean, if we'd have chat off chased animals and stuff like that, they'd have fired us. They wouldn't put up with that a minute. And on top of that, I know this story can't be true. I've already found an inconsistency.
What's that?
I never saw a conductor awake, much less run after something. Shoot, they ain't got the energy to run after something. They lay over there and let flies crawl around on them while they're asleep. They're too lazy to swat them off. And you want me to think one jumped off and chased after her?
This one's different.
Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Jacko, whatever, huh?
This one's different.
This conductor's different.
Hey, he's better.
Oh, okay.
This isn't in.
He's a lot different than the ones I work with.
Anyways, they decided the creature was probably a deranged Indian, which I'm not sure where they got that from. But they, decided to capture him so he could be, taken care of. They climbed the bluff behind him until he came to a ledge with no place to go. The conductor, Mr. Craig, found a large rock and knocked the thing unconscious because he said it was acting like a trapped animal.
You chase it onto a ledge where it has nowhere to go. And then you don't know why it's acting like a trapped animal. Boy, this is a railroad crew.
The 4 men returned and locked this thing in the baggage car. The train arrived in Yale.
the baggage car?
Yeah.
And by the time they arrived at the next station, that monkey boy had pooped and thrown it all over the baggage car. Now, if I'm the engineer, I'm saying, look, it's not my contract to get monkeys out of baggage cars. So y'all got him in there, y'all get him out.
The train arrived in Yale, where he was unloaded and kept in jail. They quickly nicknamed the animal Jacko. People heard about the encounter and traveled from all over to get a glimpse of this creature. Dr. Hannington inspected the beast and noticed bruises on his head and his neck, and soreness when it attempted to move. Figured the thing must have ventured close to the bluff and fell. It was probably knocked unconscious when the train arrived and woke it. Dr. Hannington also reported that he had no idea what type of animal Jacko even was.
So, first, they knock him out, lock him on a train, Then they lock him in jail, have a doctor come check his prostate, and then wonder why he's so upset. Come on, man.
3 upstanding men that live near Tunnel 4 have been reporting a gorilla-like creature living in the area. All 3 had seen this animal before. People had laughed at them and figured they'd mistaken a bear for a gorilla, but this wasn't a...
3 upstanding men who had just escaped from the loony bin had seen a gorilla in Canada. It's got to be true.
Jacko had jet black hair everywhere, except for on his palms and the soles of his feet. Some sources claimed he had paws instead of hands. The hair on his body is about an inch in length. It probably thickens up during the harsh winters of Canada. It was noted that his forearm is longer than a normal man and he possesses great strength for his size. When given a stick, Jacko would bend and twist it in a strange way and break it. This is the same as what Sasquatch hunters claim to find. So, it really seems like Jacko is a Sasquatch.
You've got this ape man in jail for a reason.
Yeah.
And somebody's going to hand him a stick the size of a baseball bat and say, "Here, Jacko, we just want to see if you can break this stick, but please don't hit nobody with it." It don't make no sense.
You can give him the stick. He could have taken it.
Oh, he stole the stick.
Could have.
I got you.
The only sound he made was sometimes a half barking sound, and other times would be a weird growling sound. The creature grew to like his caretakers, so that's probably why they trusted him with a stick. George, which was George Tilbury, not all the caretakers, just George. Dr. Hannington advised George to avoid feeding Jacko raw meat as it could make him more savage. But George fed Jacko several different things, but his favorite food turned out to be berries and milk.
So, don't feed him any meat. But his favorite food is berries and milk.
Yeah.
I heard a man one time. It reminds me, a man one time told me he had a dog that ate turnip greens. I told him I never had a dog that ate turnip greens. He said his didn't either for the first 2 weeks. So maybe it's Jacko's favorite food because it's the only thing they gave him. Think about it.
I mean, Jacko probably chose it over other things.
But we will never know, will we? It's just the paper don't say.
Paper don't say no.
We're just giving you berries and milk. Hey, Jacko, you like them berries and milk. Of course, it's the only thing we're giving you, so you have to like it. That makes sense.
This is not okay. Do you think other than meat, only berries and milk's the only food you can give somebody?
And what else would you give an ape boy? A nanner?
Possibly.
They probably didn't have nanners up there back then.
You don't know.
I don't know.
Well, to prove this isn't a hoax, many years later, an old man named August Castle visited the jail and saw Jacko before they put him on a train. George Tilbury decided to take Jacko to England, Canada. Canada belonged to England, by the way. Not England, Canada. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
So they were going to exhibit it so people could go and see it. But on the way there, Jacko was never seen again.
So just like the Dover Demon, old Jacko's going to England, huh? What's he going to do over a visit? The London Bridge, Big Ben, maybe Stonehenge, the Queen? Now we'll never know.
The Mall of America.
He disappeared.
The Mall of America.
How did he disappear?
Oh, wait, no, that's in Canada.
Wormhole open up and swallow him. You said he disappeared.
I can tell you how he disappeared.
Oh, okay.
If you would listen.
I'm sorry.
However, George Tilbury admitted that Jacko died on the voyage across the Atlantic, and his body was thrown overboard because there was no way to preserve it. So, it would stink and rot and all that. Another man named Chilko Chewate, I might be butchering that, was in Yale and saw Jacko. He wrote that Jacko was an ape. Another woman remembered her mother telling the story about visiting Jacko in jail.
Hang on a minute. They've got a real live Sasquatch.
They didn't call him Sasquatch back then.
Or whatever he's supposed to be.
Jacko.
And it dies, and they just throw him in the ocean. That makes sense.
It would have rotted.
If I had a Sasquatch, I wouldn't care if it rotted or not.
They did.
They'd be millionaires. Unless the boat captain told them, throw it over, it stinks up the boat.
But what happened?
Okay.
Now, cryptozoologists argue about whether the newspaper articles were a hoax. But the question I have for you is, why would a newspaper hoax a story on purpose like this? I mean, what was their gain? People who read the article flooded the town to see Jacko in jail. So if it was a hoax, these people would have been frustrated traveling so far just to see absolutely nothing. Although these people in 1884 had never heard of a Sasquatch, everything they described about Jacko sounded just like a young Sasquatch. How can this be a coincidence? The saddest part of the entire story is how it was just kind of thrown in the ocean to die, just abandoned. These people didn't realize what they had in their possession. The story of the hoax came from another competing newspaper who were just upset about the colonists beating them to the story. So no one really claimed it was a hoax without, like,
And they probably throwed him over the boat into the ocean saying, oh, well, we'll catch another in about a week. Happens all the time.
they
See
might
them, all of them down the railroad up there.
they might have thought so. That's the end of the paper.
Now, I never told you about the cryptid I saw.
No, because you want me to guess it.
It was an animal. I'll give you a hint. It wasn't no ghost. It was an animal. And when I saw it, I was working with a redneck conductor named G-Man. And I yelled at G-Man, look at that thing. And he's going through his paperwork. You know, the train's got a paperwork. What kind of dangerous cars are in your consist, stuff like that. He's going through his paperwork. He looks up and sees it, goes, shrugs his shoulder, and goes back to his paperwork. Like he sees them every day.
That's probably what they were thinking on the boat.
Evidently, yeah, they's probably dumb too. I couldn't believe my eyes, and he's over there. Yep.
You couldn't believe your eyes. It was something big.
It was different.
Well,
but I know what I saw.
Maybe it was
It
Jacko.
wasn't no wacko Jacko.
Okay, never mind. I will say though, now that we are finished with the paper, as you call it, we have discussion time.
Okay. Why do some people think it's a hoax and some people think it ain't?
Only people that think it's a hoax is the newspaper mad that the other newspaper got to the story first.
So they called it a hoax.
Exactly.
But there were witnesses that seen this thing in jail, right?
Pretty good bit.
And they give it a stick to break and bury his dead.
Oh, George did that because he liked it.
George liked it, so he gave it a stick.
And it liked him.
Oh. The part about the conductor getting off and chasing after it, that's a little bit unbelievable if you've ever rode a train, worked for the railroad. But, I mean, back then, you had to work. Back then, it wasn't like now where you just get up there and go to sleep. You had to do a little work. And, Jacko. If you was going to catch a Bigfoot, and you was going to hoax a story, how big did you say it was?
I didn't say how big he was, actually.
What? You said he was like a boy.
Yeah, he wasn't like a grown man. He's a small little child. It's a baby Sasquatch.
Huh?
It's a baby Sasquatch. That's my script.
A baby Sasquatch.
I don't think I put how big he was in there, did I? Did I put how big he was in there? Hang on, let me look.
That's what I'm trying to find.
Oh, I did. It was reported that Jacko stood 4 feet 7 inches tall and weighed 127 pounds.
That ain't no Sasquatch. If it is, it's a midget. It'd be nothing to me to whoop a 4'7" Sasquatch. I could take him.
This isn't a rating, and if you could fight it.
No, I'm just saying. That's what I can't figure out. If you're gonna make up a Sasquatch story, why wouldn't they catch a full size one? Why would he be 4'7"?
Exactly.
120 pounds?
Exactly. That means it's not fake. That means it is a real story. And they saw a baby Sasquatch.
Personally, I've seen some hobos out there on the railroad that look a lot like that. They just hadn't shaved. He could have been laying there on the track playing like he was asleep, hoping he could get a train to stop so he could catch it. And when all them people come jumping off a train, he thought, oh, crap, it's the railroad police, so he ran.
You laugh, but I did actually read that theory online.
Really?
Yeah.
See, that guy worked for the railroad.
Probably.
I've seen some people on the railroad, some hobos that look like Neanderthals. I ain't lying.
Okay, it doesn't mean they are one. You could tell the difference between it had
so
paws.
They called a hobo.
It had paws. It had paws, Dad.
Oh, he had paws.
Yeah, he had paws.
Oh. It could be a hoax. It could be a hoax. But at the same time, they had to know if you're going to hoax a newspaper story like this, people going to flood in there to see this thing, right? And if
Yep.
they get there and it ain't there, then they gonna
Big
come in
mad.
the newspaper office and kill somebody.
Angry. All of that for a story, and trust me, I don't think news articles are that hungry for a story that they gotta make something up.
I'm not gonna sit here and say they caught a Sasquatch, but I'm gonna say they caught something they didn't know what it was. I mean, at one point they even called it a deranged Indian, didn't they?
That's what they thought when they first saw it.
So
Doesn't mean it was.
they had something, I believe. I think it's hard to prove.
And they-
Jacko's a pretty good story. I don't know if I like Jacko's story just because of the story, because it's on the railroad.
I will say though, it is.
Or to count off for it being on the railroad.
I'm gonna give a testament to say that. Please don't. I'm gonna give a testament to say that they didn't know what they had on their boat. When you think about it, that Sasquatch wasn't a thing at the time. They didn't have the name Sasquatch. They named it Jacko because they never heard of a Sasquatch
Yeah,
before.
they just went over and told the queen, "Hey, we're coming over here and our monkey died."
Yeah, probably. Probably just thought it was some old monkey. Honestly. I mean, you get somebody to tell you like this is you ain't gonna
See,
hear it.
this is the way a podcast should be. It should be interesting. You know, it shouldn't be make believe, hocus pocus.
It's not. None of them
Devils
have
coming out of holes in the basement.
Come on, that was
I mean,
believable.
you're digging history
That one
up.
was
I like
believable.
history. See.
That one was believable.
Okay, if I give you a rating, you promise not to scream and yell and act goofy.
No.
That's about right. I'm gonna give Jacko a 5. I like Jacko. It's something weird, something different. Now you stirred the dogs up.
I got 5.
Yeah, you got a 5.
Highest score.
Oh,
score.
Jacko, the Jacko.
I need to stick to stuff like this. This is my magnus opus.
You're a who?
I'm like a golden statue in the desert.
Oh, yeah. But now, 10 means I'm convinced. 0 means I'm not. 1 means I'm not, and 5 just means I believe something's going on.
Yeah.
So I don't think they just made that up and put it in the newspaper, like I said. But I don't know.
I said it about a
There's no
bajillion. No, how many times?
Midget Sasquatch.
How many times did I say to you that every episode I'm raising up, I'm getting better?
Last week you got a 2.1, so you didn't raise up that
That
much.
doesn't count. That doesn't
No.
count
Okay.
because you rated unfairly. You rated unfairly
Blame it on the Raider.
because you rated unfairly.
Anyway,
Oh,
got your 5.
you're gonna end this one now?
Yeah, go call all your
Anybody's-
girlfriends and brag. Got a 5.
I'm going to.
TNT out.
Woo!